Awesome. So welcome to Be the Market Expert. And as always, we're gonna start off with Housing Wire, and we're gonna look at rear view facing data. So this data came out on the 23rd. So this was last Friday by Logan Motoshami, who is the economist for Housing Wire. And so the article reads, mortgage rates held by the Fed's moderate stance. And so we talked about this last week. And we were all just praying that whatever the Fed does is just super monotone and they don't get crazy, they don't get super hawkish. And so it says mortgage rates had a chance to break to a new height this year, and the Federal Reserve took a moderate tone at the last Fed meeting. This was huge, right? Like with Powell going on and not saying anything crazy, because that's all it takes. When the Fed goes on and they start mentioning that they might have to start getting restrictive or doing some tightening, that makes some weird things start to happen. So last week when the Fed had their meeting and they took that just monotone, flat, no real stance, that was great news for mortgage rates. And so, yeah, Mitch is throwing the thumbs up. Yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly what we wanted. And so as we saw the benefit of lower mortgage rates with the last two existing home sales reports, which showed growth. And again, we are in a market right now that is dictated by mortgage rates. And guys, we're still seeing home prices go up. And that's actually going to be on the next one that we look at, is that prices are still going up. With rates what they are right now, we are seeing an affordability issue. And it doesn't mean that people aren't looking to buy houses, is that they have to actually go and they have to have the right home. And the right home has to make sense for probably a longer living time than they were typically looking at back in 2021, right? Because 2021 rates were so low, money was pretty much free. And so it didn't really matter for the general consumer to go out and be like, okay, does this house make sense for the next 10, 15, 20 years? Because how cheap everything was. Now people are having to actually pause, pump the brakes a little bit. And they're thinking like, does this thing make sense if I'm paying $3,000, $3,500, $4,000 a month on a mortgage payment? Like, this is what we're running into. So when we're going and we're looking at this thing, we're not going to talk about the 10-year yield and the mortgage rates, but we do know they're traditionally like 2-3% around one another. So as things are rising, like that's what we're jumping into.
Hey,
Purchase.
Charles.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, can I just add back to the 21 scenario?
Absolutely.
Your point is very well taken. People didn't think twice about how long they were going to live there. All they wanted was to get a house.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got in and figured out, what are we going to do here? How are we going to live here? What changes can we make, et cetera? Now they're thinking about everything, which is actually causing quite a few fallouts too,
Mm-hmm.
where they're looking at. So that's another unusual thing that's going on in this market with higher rates and higher payments. They're trying to better justify buying that home as opposed to just wanting to buy a home.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. No,
sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that was important.
no, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. No, there's no interruptions, right? And just what Mitch just said, as we're looking at this thing and our buyers are going out there, we've seen this. We've seen this in our own transactions. We've actually seen buyers go and look at houses and they're falling out of contract at inspection. They're going through and the home almost meets their needs. It's so very close, but they're like, it's not worth that money. And they're walking away and they're looking for the right home. So purchase application data says purchase application data really moved on mortgage rates, right? And we see that when the rates start going down, we see purchase application go up. And that is your clients reaching out to your lender saying, I'm interested in purchasing a house. What do I qualify for? Because that's the name of the game right now, is they need to know what their monthly payment is going to be towards a house. And so when they start seeing rates go down and start going up, and they reaching out to the lender. So purchase application data, and it's saying since November 2023, we've had 10 positive and 16 negative and prints. And what they're doing is they're making adjustments around the holidays because right when we're Christmas time, Hanukkah, New Year's, like people are relaxing, they're with their family, and that data starts to go down. So we try to pull that data out because it doesn't really help us. It tells a story. It's just not the story that really matters because it's a weird time of year. And so year to date, we've had 4 positive prints and 6 negative prints. And again, this is 100% tied around mortgage rates. And it would probably be a whole lot worse. And what I think we're actually going to see, like if I were to get out my crystal ball right now, I think that you guys probably have clients out there that are reaching out to lenders, which mortgage rates are kind of going down a little bit from what I've seen. Like we're looking at the rates kind of go down. So I think that we're going to see some people raise their hands and they're interested in what they could potentially qualify for. So that's my crystal ball. I think that when we're looking at this next week and we're looking at purchase rate or purchase application data, I think we're going to see that we're going to have positive prints. That's my crystal ball, just because where rates are, what's happening with rates. And it says demand picks up. It says, imagine a housing market with just 6% mortgage rates or lower. It would be growing like what we were to see in new home sales markets. And it's true, right? Everything that we are seeing is dictated on mortgage rates. And I think that a lot of our consumers right now, they're comfortable at 6%. I mean, they don't love 6%. Everyone loves 2%. Everyone loves 3%. But we all know that that's not a world that we're really living in anymore. And when we're seeing these flat percentages, and this doesn't look like a third world country of it going up and down, and we don't know what the market's going to do tomorrow or 15 days, 30 days, 2 months from now, that's where we start seeing some weird things happen and people pump the brakes. So when we start to see this thing flatten out, even at 6%, your consumers are going to start coming back to the table a lot quicker. They're going to be reaching out to your lender and asking your lender what they qualify for. So
Something, the stat is like every 1% drop in rate, another like 2 million people can qualify to buy a house.
Wow.
Yeah, there's some really crazy stat around that. I forget the exact amount. The other thing that reminds me of, then you have these 2-1 buy downs starting at 4%. And that really is attractive to people and it really gives them some comfort level in buying a house that maybe they wouldn't have.
Absolutely. There's so many great loan products out there right now, right, Mitch? Like to where they just go through, and if just because rates are where they are right now, we are seeing a lot of blanket offers with concessions attached to it. And those concessions can be used to do a lot of cool things to help people qualify for houses.
Correct.
So weekly housing inventory, we're looking at weekly housing inventory. And again, this is rear view facing data. It says weekly inventory change March 15th to the 22nd. It rose from 507 to 512. So not a huge jump, but this is national data. And then it says the same time last year. So we're talking about 2023, we actually saw inventory fall. So we're in a better place than we were in 2023. And again, it is because we're not seeing the huge jumps and fluctuations on mortgage rates. And again, we have to keep in mind that at least most sellers do become buyers. And there is a lot of uncertainty out there when we start seeing these blips, these spikes in interest and mortgage rates, because when there's those blips and I put my home on the market, and if I don't know what my rate is going to be 30 days, 45 days, 60 days from now, because keep in mind, homes are sitting on the market a lot longer. If I need to actually lock in my rate when I identify a home, there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of people like, no, wait, I'm going to wait until these things stabilize a little bit, unless they're super motivated and they have something pushing them to sell or buy. All-time inventory bottom was in 2022 was at 240,000. So we're way better than what we were in 2022. And the inventory peak in 2023 was 569. So again, we are coming out of our very seasonal market here in Colorado. And keep in mind that real estate is seasonal, right? We go to sleep as jack-o'-lanterns, we wake up as Easter bunnies. And as we're thinking about that, in Colorado, with just the weather and everything that we're having, that compounds that. So when we're looking at this thing, we're seeing this was the peak in 2023 was 569,898, and we're sitting at 512,000 nationwide. This is good. Like this is a good sign that we're going to see more and more inventory come onto the market, which is good for our sellers. It's good for our buyers. It is a more healthy market. And as Mitch just said, we're seeing a lot of buyers, not a lot, but we're seeing more buyers. We're seeing more buyers pull out of deals because something is not looking right for the amount of money that they're spending. With more inventory hitting the market, we're going to see more people raise their hands with rates starting to flatten, if not going down. And then for context, right, we like to do everything pre-2019. Pre-2019, we think of as a healthy, normal market, maybe not healthy, but more normal, right? Pre-pandemic market, 985,000 homes on the market. So when we're looking at 985,000 homes compared to the 512,000 that we're at, we're talking a little bit more than half is where we're going at. And that just shows you like we have a lot of room to grow, but keep in mind at the same time, while there's less inventory, there's still more people. You have to think about all the people that have come to age, all the people that are now, they're having families. They are done with all their experiences that they were looking to get out of the way before they were buying houses. So this is actually what's keeping prices inflated at the exact same time, is that yes, there's less inventory, there's more people, and so there's less homes for more people. So rates are staying elevated, or not rates, prices are staying elevated even with rates being what they are at. This is why we're not seeing home prices come tumbling down. New listing data, and again, right, we look at 2024, 60,000, 2023, 49,000, 61,000 to 2022, and this is new homes hitting the market. And again, this is not taking into account homes that are truly in the market and coming back off, right? This isn't counting for those pocket listings, right? This isn't going to see a pocket listing that comes on and comes off just for comp purposes only. This wouldn't capture any of that data. These homes actually have to sit on the market as they're scraping a little bit. So while these are skewed minimally, they are still a little bit skewed. Price cut percentages. 2024, 31%. We know that we see about 1/3 yearly. We see 1/3 of all homes take a price cut. And so we're right in line with that. So when we're looking at this thing, we're not seeing anything crazy. Only 1/3 year to date, 31%. 2023, we saw 30%. 2022, again, we probably saw an influx in 2022 in the later part of the year because of interest rates, right? Interest rates started to go up, and they actually went up really, really quickly. And that's what actually was scared a lot of people. And this is probably where we saw more of the price cuts, was towards the end of the year when homes are sitting for a little bit longer. And again, homes are sitting longer now than they were in the previous couple of years. And so this is why we're getting back to these normal. This is a normal market as we talk about price cuts. So as we're talking with our clients, we need to understand what the market is doing. If we are pricing it above the market or at the top of the market, we have to let them know that we, historically speaking, we see about 30% of all homes take a price cut. These are the conversations that we need to be making sure that we're implementing into our conversation, especially as we're being the real estate economist of choice and helping our people navigate the market that we are currently in. And so that they're not making decisions based off of what they saw in their neighbor on Zillow. We have to make sure that we're setting realistic expectations. So this week ahead, this is next week, right? The week that we're in, we have new home sales, pending home sales, and the National Home Price Index data. And Logan will be on MSNBC or CNBC yesterday. He was on. I didn't watch that. And again, the big thing that we're watching is the Fed. And so that information is going to come out on Friday to see kind of what's happening. So home prices. So I just told you, like, home prices are still going up. So this article came out today. And this is kind of interesting. It says home prices maintain their upward trajectory in the opening months of the year. Again, seasonal market and a very seasonal time of the year, and home prices are still going up. And what's interesting, like if we were to look at some of this stuff, it says San Diego posted 11.2% year-over-year home price increase, which was the highest among, the 20 cities tracked. We got LA, Detroit, Charlotte, Chicago, Portland, right? We're seeing a lot of price increases. And again, as we're thinking about the interest rates, and there's all this talk about interest rates are slowing things down, and they are, right? That's very real. Interest rates are slowing things down, but they're not reversing anything. We're seeing the home prices go up because there's still a bigger population of home buyers in the United States that are needing to buy houses. Multiple reasons, right? They're getting deployed, they're getting transferred, they're adding to their family, they're subtracting from their family, like they're sending kids off to school, right? Maybe there's death, like there is something happening. And so there isn't enough inventory out there. So there isn't enough inventory out there. This is why prices are going up. This is supply and demand, even with interest rates doing what they're doing. So kind of interesting to think about and to look at. And when we start seeing this 11%, and we know historically speaking, since the 1990s, and KW's been tracking this, 4% is the historical appreciation year over year over year. And that we have cities out there that are almost tripling it, right? Like 11.2%. Then we see these cities down here that are doubling it, right? With these 8%. So these guys are doubling the historical annual appreciation nationwide at 4%. And so we're still seeing this kind of stuff. So there are still markets that are heating up, that are moving very quickly. And keep in mind that they probably had a lower price point to start. I mean, definitely not San Diego, but when we start talking about like Detroit, Chicago, and these appreciations, we are seeing some things happening in these areas, which is really, really leading to this stuff. So supply is loosening up in some markets, which will provide some relief to home buyers this spring, will ease upward pressure on home prices. However, we are unlikely to see any significant price drops in most markets because demand remains strong. A sharp economic downturn or spike in mortgage rates, neither of which are likely, are the only factors that could dramatically reduce the number of home buyers in the market. And again, what if the Fed even says that they're thinking about doing something, we see the market start doing some weird things. And this is what is going to drive a lot of different things happening in our industry specifically. But there's no indicators that the Fed's going to do anything. If the Fed was going to do anything, they would have done it last time, because we didn't have the numbers that we were looking for. And so if the Fed wanted to tighten some things down, they would have already have done it. Like, I can't imagine, like, Mitch, I saw you pop back on. Is there anything that you think would truly in the foreseeable future that could happen that would make the Fed raise rates?
No. That's a hesitant no, because if things heat up again, then yes. I don't expect that to heat up enough. And because everything lags, all this data is lagging information. I think we're going to start seeing some slowing coming up. Actually, the consumer index is coming out on Friday, as well as the Fed talking, but it's also Good Friday, so there's no mortgages being traded on Friday. So rates won't be available possibly. However, the data will come out. So I don't think they'll be raising them anytime soon. I mean, all talk is for the potential of 3 drops this year. Now that 3 drops was cut in half because it was supposed to be 6.
Yep.
So there's the delay and there's the impact. So we're hoping that'll push into 2025, where we'll see a continued slowing, of which then see rates drop again. One comment is I'm seeing a lot of multiple offer transactions right now, a lot. I had 3 clients put in offers this week, and I don't think any of them got their offers accepted. And it was all multiple offers, and it was anywhere from 250 to $1,050,000. It was the whole spectrum. It wasn't just one little category. I mean, the sweet spot now is what, 550 to 750. Like, that's kind of the entry level.
Yeah.
And there's so much competition for those first homes for people. So it's heating. It's already heated up. It's not heating up. It's already there for those ranges, and if it's a decent property. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So
good
our
stuff.
negotiating skills are important again.
Yeah, absolutely. We've left that speed-based market, skills-based market time. We need to be able to make sure that we're staying educated and we're having conversations. We know what levers to pull to win the contracts for our clients. So then, if we look at the mortgage rates, right? And this is just 1 year's worth of data, or year to date. I'm sorry, not year. 1 year's worth of time, and this is January 2nd, because January 1st was obviously a holiday, and we're looking through. Nothing too crazy, right? We know that we start some slowdown right here, but then we saw this big dip happen on the 11th. I say big dip, it's relatively big. It's all relative, but then we're seeing this little decrease again right here. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think when we're looking at this data next week, we're actually going to see the purchase application probably went up as we started seeing this little bit of a slide start to go down, but we're not to the rock bottom of the year. But here's the thing, like, as we're looking at all this information, this is what we're grading it on. Like, I'm truly grading everything on 1 year's worth of time. What 1 year's worth of time as we're looking at this thing, and we can see like 2023, it was rising. We hit this part, which the sky was falling, right? Like it's like affordability was out the window at this point. And then we just saw this big dip. And this is probably where we saw, some of the positive prints and purchase application data, but then we hit sub 7%. And as long as we can kind of live around here and drop a little bit lower, especially with the products, right? Like Mitch is talking about these 3-2-1 buy downs or anything, right? And we get these concessions for our clients and we understand the process and we know what it does for them. And so we know that we're really not looking at 6.7 or 6.6. Like in all reality, this might be like a 4.7 or 4.6, at least for the first year. And so these are the kind of conversations that we should be having to make sure that we are educating our clients so they understand, well, this is what it looks like on paper. Let's get you pre-qualified. I got a great lender. Let's talk to my lender. Let's have a conversations and let's talk about the loan programs that are available out there to make this payment more affordable. So then when we kind of go through just a little bit further, this isn't too terrible, right? Like if I'm looking at this thing and just even like the last month, it's pretty flat. This isn't third world country stuff. Like this is what you expect the United States to look like. A little bit more flat would be ideal. But in the grand scheme of things, like this isn't bad. I am not mad at this. When we start seeing major peaks and valleys, that's what scares our buyers and our sellers off. Because again, we have to keep in mind that if rates are going up and down continuously every day and there's these big swings, if I'm able to afford a house at X amount of dollars today and it's taking 60 days to sell a house, as a home seller, I'm probably not putting my home on the market because I don't know what 60 days looks like down the road. And that's what's slowing a lot of people down. So let's go into Altos. And again, guys, like you have access to Altos. Every last one of you can go on to this. This is free. This is the free version right here. And I'm just looking at Arvada. So I went Arvada as a whole. This is data as of today. And if we even look at the median price point in Arvada, we're at $690,000. That's the median list price. So $690,000. And keep in mind, median, they're taking the cheapest, they're taking the most expensive, and they are just whittling them down to the middle. They're getting rid of the outliers. They're saying this is the middle price point. Our price per square foot, $286. 67 days on market. And this is the thing, this is the average, right? So they're taking all the numbers and they're dividing them by all the properties and they're coming up with this number right here. So 67. But if we were to look at median, if we were to take away all the outliers, our median days on market is only 21. So if we're taking the data and we're having conversations with our sellers and we're saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you price the home correctly, then we're seeing a median day, getting rid of all the outliers, getting rid of the ones that, the pocket listings for one day and the homes that are overpriced. This is what we can kind of expect in this area. So Becca just said, thanks for bringing this data. I use this all the time for my listing appointments, right? Like as we should, like we should be taking this data, like numbers tell a story. This is what helps us. We take this third-party information and we say, look, this is what we're seeing. What do you want to do? We're seeing price decreases, 29% in Arvada. Cool. So we know that 33%, 1/3 of all homes taking a price decrease is a normal market. So this is pretty normal. Price increases, like I don't really care about this because this is just showing me probably new home construction sale houses hitting the market and they're raising prices. So I don't really care about that. Relisted homes, here's what Mitch was talking about, right? Like as we're going through, we have these discerning buyers that are going through and they're like, you know what? For this money that I am spending, I'm not comfortable with this home, and they're canceling contracts. Median rent, $3,000. We'll talk about that here in a second. And then the market actions, they're just scoring it. They're saying it's a 62 out of their score of 100. And so they're saying we're in a seller's market, which we all know this. We're in a seller's market. We do know that buyers have a little bit more power. We are seeing the blanket concession offers. We're seeing buyers walk away from deals if they're not comfortable with it. So this is what Altos is telling us. Now, if we were to go over here, and what I did was I just took a $680,000 house. So we just saw that 690 was the median price point in Arvada. I took 680 was the first one that was fairly close. So let's just jump to the front. Here is $680,000 in Arvada. So we're talking, this is a Hutchinson home. It is built in the 60s. There is a one-car garage. It's somewhere over here by us, right? It says Campbell Elementary. So it's very close somewhere to us. And it does look like it's a flip. They refinished the floors. They went through, they did some upgrades in the kitchen. This was probably a wall. They ripped it out and they kept the header in here so that you could stay a little bit more open, have a big open feel. You can see that they already did a price drop too. So this was actually sitting at the medium price point at $690. But as we're going through, this is truly a 1960s home. It does have an ensuite for the primary bedroom. But here we go. 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, 1,100 square foot house. So there's no basement. There's no basement in this thing. But the whole point of this is this right here. So if we're looking at this thing, $680,000. This is what we need to understand. So when we're having conversations with our buyers, we understand where they're coming from and we know the kind of conversations that we need to be having. So if we're looking at this $680,000 home, we're seeing the principal, we're seeing principal and interest, the property taxes, home insurance. There is no HOA. Keep in mind, HOA is going to mess a lot of things up. It's going to take away purchase power. And then here's your mortgage insurance because I put a 10% down payment in. So if we're looking at this thing, we're saying 6.7% interest. Let's see kind of where we're lining up. 6.7, cool. Let's call it 6.7. We're looking at this thing 6.7 over 30 years. That means our down payment has to be $68,000 as a buyer, which is going to take their monthly payment to $4,653. Guys, this is why we're seeing contracts get canceled because they have to get around this number right here. Mitch, I saw you go on mute.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. So probably the homeowner's insurance is not totally supported at that level. It's too low.
Okay.
But the mortgage insurance is excessively too high.
Okay.
So, for example, I would tell somebody it's about 2.25% for insurance, and I calculated the mortgage insurance, it's $107.
Okay.
Well, that's a huge difference on that total payment.
Yeah, we're talking.
Just FYI. So that's why people who look at these calculators go, God, when I was looking on the online calculator, Mitch, my numbers came out totally different. And I don't know if this is a national average or how they get these numbers, but that's why it's so important to be specific, because you could lose a buyer for this property if they saw this number when we really are not at that number.
Right, 100%. Like this is the importance of getting to your lender, right? Like have them talk to Mitch, have the conversation. Like this is just for us to kind of go through and to kind of see what our people are hearing and seeing, and then you got to give them to the expert. Right, like we're not the expert, and Zillow isn't, and Realtor.com, and even this KW website isn't the expert. But this is what they're seeing. We know that most people start their search online. They start their searches online, and this is the information that they're getting. They're seeing mainstream media tell them all this kind of stuff, and they're seeing this number. That's where we need to be the real estate economists of choice, and we need to know exactly kind of what they're hearing. So if we're seeing this, they're seeing $68,000 as a down payment, 10%. Guys, and guess what? They're also hearing commission lawsuits now, right? They're hearing that they have to actually pay the buyer's agent commission. So then they're saying, oh God, there's another $15,000, $20,000 that I'm having to put on top of this. And they're going through and there's a lot of limiting beliefs out there. And so as we're going through, we're having these conversations, we're making sure that this is the information that they're getting. And we need to make sure that we understand that there's programs out there that can help them get around some of these, and that these numbers aren't 100% correct. But if we were to look at it, let's do this. Let's take this payment. Let's go 20%. Let's just say that this person has a substantial down payment using the same everything, right? Except it's going to take away mortgage insurance, because mortgage insurance is a protection for the lender, just in case we do get foreclosed on or something weird happens, that they are protected. Now we're bringing $136,000. I would say that most people in this price point, because again, we're looking at like a starter home in Colorado, unfortunately. We're talking about $3,857. We can see that big swing, right? We go 3,857 versus 4,653. This is the numbers that they're seeing. And while we know that these are a little bit skewed, this is still something that we need to be keeping in mind, that it is the conversation and the things that they are seeing. So as we're going through and we're doing these different things, guys, mortgage application data, it went the wrong way. But I think with everything happening, I think what we're going to see when we're looking at this next week is that it's actually trending again because of the interest rates. Interest rates are going down, if not falling. Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, my general comment is they're not quite at 6.75 either without paying points. These barometers in Optimal Blue, we use that system, that program, doesn't include loan information that creates a final amount for the rate. However, I was going to go back to the screen about that payment. At that payment that we had at the $4,600, the buyers would have to make $12,000 a month to qualify for that.
Oh, good information. So there we go. So we're talking
It's $144,000 a year to qualify for a $680,000 home with 10% down.
So hit us with that number one more time.
$144,000 a year. So $12,000 a month. That's the part that's been challenging.
Right, because this is $55,000, almost $56,000 alone just a year in just monthly mortgage payments.
Yeah.
Right.
And
This is an astronomical number.
Right. And that's assuming not a lot of debt either with my calculation. So
right. You're saying that maybe they're paying a cell phone bill, they're paying food, they're maybe have some TV subscriptions, but they're not going over, they don't have a brand new car that they're paying $1,000 a month for.
that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. I mean, it could have some debt for sure, but it's limited. Now, there's a lot of people who make that kind of money these days. So those are the people out looking at a home at this price. They know upfront what they need to be doing. It's not a shocker to most people when they go looking at this point because they have had that conversation with the lender. Right. But I bring it up because it's a lot of money to be showing that you have to earn for a starter home.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's like, it's something 36%, somewhere around that, in the population's earning north of $100,000 a year. Isn't that? I mean, like, it's not a giant number of the population that's earning that kind of money.
Right.
So
anyhow, just thought I'd point that out.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're looking at this is what's slowing a lot of people down. And this is truly why they are being more discerning. So guys, as we're going through and we're looking at this was great news. We talked about this last week, that the Fed didn't say anything crazy. They didn't get hawkish. They didn't make any comments. They didn't threaten. And that's what happened in the past, is that they were like, well, we said we might drop interest rates. If you guys keep spending, we're going to raise them. Right. Like, and they've made these kind of these off the cusp remarks that is what has sent a lot of things spiraling and a lot of bad, weird things going on. But as we're looking at this, they didn't say anything. Interest rates have come down a little bit. So I think we're going to see purchase application going out. We need to be making sure that we're having the conversations with our consumer, reaching out, putting out the information, putting out the data. We're seeing more homes hit the market. We're seeing more people go out and have conversations. This is all good stuff. We're seeing people get comfortable with the interest rate. And they understand that all these people that we're talking about, silver tsunami, the Airbnb bust, the housing bubble, like, those were just headlines, and they have been waiting and waiting and waiting for this stuff to happen. And they're realizing it's not happening, and they're coming back to the table because they can no longer wait. And so what we do know is that we need to be the first real estate agent up there to have the conversation, because most people don't get to the second agent. So what are we doing? What are we doing? Making sure that we're putting out information on our social media, that we're texting, we're making phone calls, we're having coffee appointments. Like, we're doing all these different things to make sure that our people are educated and they understand that we're the real estate accountants of choice. We can help them. And then we're actually providing the data. We're actually showing them what is happening in our local marketplace. Because cool, like, we can go to CNN, we can go to Fox, we can go to YouTube, we can go to Twitter, we can go to all these different places and get information, but they're not breaking it down at a super hyper local level like we can. And when we find out what they're looking for, we can show them the information. We can show them the data. We can get them to our preferred lender, right? We can reach out and say, hey, Mitch, can you please walk them through this process and show them exactly what they qualify for? And as we're talking about concessions, and I think it's something, I can't remember what it is. It's an astronomical amount of offers right now that have a concession attached before we're getting into negotiations. That when we're seeing these concessions and we know what we can use concessions for, and we can see these buy downs, and we're actually getting these rates at a more comfortable level, and the monthly payment, guys, you are the hero. And that's a repeat and referral business, that someone's like, yeah, my agent was able to get me 2% cheaper than what most people are getting, and they're telling that story, that is the repeat and referral business that we're going to see and we're going to start winning on.
Just to add in, tomorrow we're going to talk about the NAR changes and what impact that's going to be have on buyers and their cash for buying a home. So I've got that presentation set up for tomorrow. It's going to be very informative and it's answering a lot of the loan questions that come into play. And it's all part of what you just mentioned, Charles. So, and the other thing in your timing, people get used to changes after 18 months. So we've seen rates be up for about 18 months now. And that's why we're seeing a lot more activity where people are like, okay, it's just going to be there. I gotta sit with that and move forward and see what I can do because I'm tired of waiting. If you all remember the Chipotle scare of the meat, how they had just that awful bad press. It took them 18 months for them to rebound from that, for people to forget, like, I'm not going there because of this. And now they have record stock prices over $3,000 a share.
It's ridiculous for a burrito. Yeah, I saw that the other day. It is.
I know. So it's the mentality of people, which we have to understand because that's our client base. They're people, and they make decisions based on their ability to move forward and also forget. They're forgetting about 2 and 3, and now they're realizing 7 is the new norm.
Yeah, logic makes them think, emotion makes them act, right?